No idea what's
All
happening.
right. The little sign says we're live on YouTube. That is my cue. Let me mute our tune here. For those of you that are just getting here, I have no idea why I needed to play that song. It just came to me when I opened up Zoom. I said, Electric Avenue. It just had to be done. I don't know. Tim, I apologize if that threw you a curveball.
Maybe you're just feeling electric after the 10,000 person presentation you just did for DDD. You got the energy built up, ready to go.
Oh, I tell you what. Yeah. So Tim's mentioning I spoke at Digital Design Days today. And right before I went on, about 10 minutes before I went on, the organizer Filippo tells me the crowd is very good. It's a little over 9,000, maybe 10,000 people by the time we start. And I'm like, wow, there's 10,000 people watching this. So no problem. All in a day's work, right? Hopefully a few of you saw it. Tim, I know you saw most of it. I'm guessing Ethan, you saw some of it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we sent out that original email talking about presentations because we figured that your energy was so pumped. But then, as you and I talked about it 40 minutes ago, really there's like a revelation in some of your conversation too of, hey, it's not just about positioning, but there's actually more to the conversation. So wanting to kind of continue that today a little bit, going beyond just what's clear positioning, how do you make something sound great, what should you write in an email? I find this is how I asked you the question 40 minutes ago, or I said it, people are asking us what they should write in an email. What should I include in the subject of an email? But no one's asked the question, where should that email point? Where should the link of that email actually have us send my audience? And it started that conversation of us realizing people aren't even asking about their sales funnel. They're not really pushing that.
Agreed. Right? And so this was the kind of the impetus to today's conversation. So first, let me just say officially, it is Wednesday, March the 6th, and this is the daily briefing for Wednesday. Tim and I believe we're going to be joined by our friend Carson, Mr. Carson Hood from Big Star here momentarily, which will be very cool. But this, in talking about, we've been through this crazy, the world going upside down where everyone was zeroed in on their cash flow, right, Tim? Everyone was hovering over, oh my gosh, all the money is going away, and started rearranging. We kind of got that plan together. We started to collect PPP money and EIDL money. And now we're entering this phase of, okay, now how do I move forward? And the thing on everyone's minds is, I got to do marketing. I got to do sales now that I have some runway. And then, of course, people start saying, well, marketing, sales, isn't that the same thing? Just tell me what to type in an email subject line so that I can get a project. And you and I were saying, there's really something called an overall strategy that we should talk about. So it's not just this crazy grabbing anything you can. I don't know. What would you call that haphazard approach to selling?
Well, I don't know how to say it specifically. Probably you're stuck in the same words too, but there's some to say like people put a lot of effort into the need or the want for sales, but then the actual conversion of sales or the thoughtful strategy of where and how sales actually works, there's not a lot of effort people put into it. And I have a feeling it happens that way because they believe it comes naturally. Why not? Like you're asked to produce sales and marketing material all the time. Shouldn't you just produce sales and marketing material for your own clients, for your own people? But you and I, Joel, know like that one of the biggest myths, one of the biggest mistakes people make is it's all about the work. If it just show pretty pictures, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to send out an email to say, hey, look at my latest work. And that's supposed to be the answer.
Yeah, I definitely hit that one like in the face today in my DDD talk, because that's one of those myths that most creative firms go through this. It's like a stage. Maybe they have to go through it because until you go through it and you see it break, you don't believe it's not true. But it's this myth called, well, it's all about the work. If we produce great work and we show a great portfolio, we will succeed, right? That's good marketing. That'll generate sales. And I guess there's a season when a firm is small where that kind of works. And then as you grow and evolve, you start realizing, yeah, but I can't depend upon that. And that's certainly not a strategy. Do you remember Robert Blatchford's word for it? He called it the wallpaper strategy. Just put a bunch of stuff up on your website and hope that people know what the heck you mean by all of that and why it's there?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it's almost like taking pamphlets and just throwing them out of an airplane. The right person grabs the pamphlet.
Yeah, so when I counteracted this myth today, I was trying to help people understand, well, if it's not about the work, then what is it? And I would say from a sort of the level of a principle, I wanted to encourage everyone, and I want to encourage everyone here to think in terms of, okay, yes, once we get our positioning figured out, we're going to be going out into the world. And what we're really selling is going to be based on building trust and sharing expertise. So now you have to say, well, what's the strategy? Sorry, my Siri thinks I'm talking to her. What's the strategy that supports that? Like, what's the method, right? Tim, you and I are big on think about what is the method that you apply when you do sales. And I've got like one little quick rule of thumb, 5-step thing that I'll walk through. But Tim, why is a method important, especially during times like these when we're trying to dig our way out of a pandemic?
Yeah, I appreciate method for two reasons, right? One is it's measurable. So as you execute your method, you're walking through steps that you know that are viable. You can see the results. You can pivot with those results, and you can start looking for what actually is working and keep following up with that. If you don't have a method and do that work, it's the second reason why I like method, which is we often get in our way. We have these false beliefs and understanding that nobody likes us, or everyone loves this, or this is, this is the way everyone else does it. And that's not real strategy. That's just kind of throwing spaghetti against the wall, hoping it sticks. You're just hoping that some of this works, and you're not doing anything measurable, calculated, and you're not getting your emotions and your person out of the way. So going back to a method and talking through some of those that will kind of play out for people, but going back to the method allows you to fall back to and deal with just the fundamentals. Walk through something on a daily basis, do something on a weekly basis, continue to follow up every other week. That's always the answer to sales. But to me, like just a little bit of pivot too, when talking about a sales funnel, we're actually talking about something greater than just the sales conversion. We're actually talking about getting the work ahead. So, again, like landing those emails and hoping that they hit is really just, confetti. I see Carson's on. Carson's a perfect person to be part of this conversation because Carson.
How you doing, Carson?
One of the first
guys, I'm sorry I'm late.
No, you're fine. Carson, greetings. Our old friend. You mind saying hello to folks here and just letting everyone know who you are?
Absolutely, yeah. First of all, thanks for having me, guys. My name's Carson Hood, and I am the executive producer over at Big Star.
That's short and crisp. I love it. You've learned to just be a man of few words. You're like,
yeah,
I'm the executive producer at Big Star. What more needs to be said?
You give me an inch and I'll take a foot. So be careful what you ask for, Joel.
Well, look, to just kind of get you up to speed, Tim and I we're basically processing this question. We were watching Donald Miller earlier today, who's really a genius at talking through what a sales funnel looks like. But he's speaking to, of course, service and product-based business owners. So it's great stuff, but I, in my opinion, find that not much of that translates when it comes to how a creative firm operates. So maybe just for starters, I wanted to put out this question of, is there such a thing as a sales funnel for a creative firm? And Tim and I started saying, well, there's clearly a method. Now, whether or not we call it a funnel, I don't know, but there's clearly a sales method. If you don't mind me just putting you on the spot, Carson, I'm sort of curious to hear, do you feel like there is such thing as a sales funnel for creative firms?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do. I think each one may be a little bit different. I think it's all kind of about how you foresee the tools you have in your toolbox. Creative, the maybe challenge to being a salesperson in a creative industry is that creativity is subjective. And so from my standpoint, to me, it's always about showing value. And beyond just our creative expertise and whatever our capabilities may be, how do we show the value that comes along with that? How do you show the value in the time that the artist is spending to that? And so that is kind of the trick of pulling out the tools from the toolbox to say, all right, my funnel is conversation, discover need, connect with solution. What is that solution and who is that solution and who can iterate that the best from my team to then take them into, okay, here's how this process is going to go to solve your problem. Now please pay and sign here. But but that's kind of the broad overview of how I look for it. For me, Josh Norton, who's our ECD, to me, I've always kind of used him as that next step for me. I know that he has the ability to show value in our time beyond just, hey, we're great designers. I think, he does a good
and
job.
Carson, you're a firm believer, as we've always talked about, is there's a difference between marketing and sales. And specifically that there's a work of marketing to generate leads, kind of get some discovery, and then there's a sales process. And when you combine it, it's a total disaster. You're expecting too much too soon. You're pushing too hard. You actually don't know the need, and you can't kind of strategically hit that need. All of that falls apart. So there's a work of marketing ahead of sales, and that's an important part to kind of put in place here.
100%. Marketing and messaging are valuable beyond belief, particularly I think during this time. Sales is a tricky line to walk. I think conversations for salespeople can be very difficult. So to me, this is where your marketing pays for itself. This is where you're getting your ROI on the amount of time you put into your social channels, into your LinkedIn, both on a personal level and a company level. And how are you promoting your leadership within the company and the overall messaging of what is the brand promise? What can you expect from our company? Here's not just examples of our work, but how did we approach it? What was the methodology around that? What was that process like? How long did it take? What were the references? All the fun stuff that you can quote unquote message and brag about yourself about, that I always call it the macro and the micro. The macro is my marketing. I want a client or a potential client to feel like, why am I seeing Big Star everywhere? Why am I seeing posts by them that talked about this project? And how did I see them in the daily brief? And how did this happen? And then, there's an email from their biz dev guy going, hey, you might need X from us. And then that's where part of the funnel, that's what's taking interest into consideration.
And let's bust another myth. Oh, God, should go.
I was just going to mention, Carson, one thing I really, one thing I have to do is do a quick plug, because the positioning line that Big Star has, I think, is genius. I just have to mention that the telling the bigger story thing is freaking awesome. I love how you guys use that. But I love that you're talking through a method, right? Like, in other words, the method that you follow. If you were at Big Star, if you were at some firm, that I know even when you and I worked together, that you had a similar method. And I love the repeatability of it, which is very different than most owners who say things like, well, I don't know, everybody just likes me, people love working with me, and they never step out of their own way or have that out-of-body moment when they realize there actually is a process, a method that I follow here. And now how can I start to delegate and build up others to come alongside me to perform this function? So I really respect that. But Tim, what was the myth you were gonna?
Well, the one you just hit on, I call the Sally Fields myth, right? When she holds the Oscar and she says, "You like me, you really, really like me," as if winning an Oscar is a popularity contest or being liked. In reality, winning an Oscar is a marketing campaign to get people elected. There's a lot of work behind the scenes and a lot of pieces moving. By all means, it's not just your favorite person out there. Yeah, so you don't want to play that same game when it comes to your
ever received.
Exactly right. And there's a lot of ROI. There's too much business to be wrapped around in the Oscar to let it be left to just a popularity contest. And the same is true with the business owners and their work. It's not about just being loved or being recognized or everyone's favorite. There must be a method. There must be a process to drag people in. So Carson, let's bust this next myth, which is marketing and sales are two sides of the same coin. I think people often think of it as like it's marketing is the left foot and sales is the right foot. But what you and I know, it's really like marketing is putting your bowling shoes on, and sales is throwing the ball to strike the pins. It's related, and it also do with bowling, but there are two totally different processes for different reasons, and one prepares and sets things up so the other can be successful.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Like bust that myth a little bit of it's not the same work, and the differences between sales and marketing with workload might be.
No, man. I feel like marketing is like, as a salesperson, I'm walking, if we were in a video game, all my marketing materials are like my ammo. I'm like, pew, 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 pew. Like that's what's given me validation. And I think the part of maybe this myth, or maybe it's another myth to bust, is that creative industry is so different from any other. And it's not. One of my best friends is a successful sales exec at a tech company in the Valley. He got crushed. He missed his quota for the first time in who knows how many years this past month. And he was really down about it. We were talking about it, and he was just like, they expect the same thing out of me. And I asked him, I was like, what's marketing providing you right now? What is their messaging? What are they getting out there? How are they feeding you? Because it sounds like to me, you have too much stress or too much expectation on your end right now to be sending out this company message. Like you shouldn't have to just send cold emails and make cold calls. You should be sending them information and vetted messaging that's coming from the top of your company to say like, this is what we're doing and this is how we can help you. And you're just the vessel for that. You're just connecting need to solution, not developing everything yourself.
Yeah,
Marcel just said
definition. Oh, sorry, Tim. I was just going to say one simple definition that I always felt made sense to me as an owner was marketing is all of those activities which enables sales to do its work. But they're different. They're different work, right? It's different work. Go ahead, Tim.
Oh yeah, I was going to say Marcel just said this in the chat. He says, "Isn't it crazy that we all work for networks on their marketing efforts? We don't do the same for ourselves." And I'll even reverse that. I have a feeling the networks that we work for find it frustrating that we don't understand marketing enough for ourselves to distinguish ourselves and even let it be easier for us to work with them. There's a lot of confusion if we don't do it right for ourselves. Joel, that goes back to your story with Roger. And what a distinguishing moment that was for you.
My infamous story with Roger Hyde at DirecTV when he told me, "Hey, you guys all suck at marketing." And maybe to be, to go easy on ourselves, if you're an owner of a creative firm, you've never bought what it is that you sell, right? Like when I watch TV, I know how to promote TV because I'm a buyer of TV. I love watching those shows. I know how I would promote that show and do it differently than promoting that show. But I've never bought a $100,000 promo campaign from a creative agency. So it's like we have these blinders on. We don't understand what it's like to be in the shoes of our buyer, in this case, an executive at a TV network, or like a Roger Hyde at DirecTV who says, "You guys all freaking sound the same." And I was, of course, just hoping that, well, if we meet and we talk and he likes me, he'll give me a project. And that's not a strategy.
I think part of that, though, part of the challenge for marketing agencies like ours to invest in creative agencies like ours to invest in marketing is because the basis for good marketing isn't always something tangible, shiny, and fun, and as a creative, Josh is a creative person and he's the owner of the company. And so he's used to saying like, I envision it, I create it. Whereas marketing, you have to really kind of dig deep and say, what is our promise? What are our values? What is our messaging? What is the strategy for getting that messaging out? It's not always a great design. It's a plan. And I think sometimes that is, and as a salesperson, it's kind of sometimes hard to get a creative person to invest that time and that energy and even money because you're not always seeing that immediate thing in your hand that you can deliver and say, this is what my money bought me. It's more of the macro, like I was explaining, that it will buy you a lot if done right and if committed to, but it's building, you're investing in building a funnel and investing in building pillars to your company that will provide you a lot of runway, particularly in times like these where, you know, you have a lot to stand on right now. If you know what your company stands for and what your messaging is, then you have a lot of ammo right now to continue conversations or to strike up conversations.
So Carson, I owe you some credit. A few years ago, me and Alex started OnRamp, and now Emmett was part of it too. Now he runs it. But you and I know that that conversation started, or that business started, when you and I are sitting down at Joe's and drinking coffee and talking about really the hard work it takes to do outreach and the constant work to keep the emails going. I set you up that way because Dustin just asked this question. Can you talk about some of the favorite marketing tools and there anything unexpected? And I feel like, you know, you're part of that inception of email marketing, but what other besides email, or what email does for you, but what else besides that might be some good marketing tools or marketing efforts you can put forward for a company?
I would invest in and look in right now into something like a Later or a Buffer, a social scheduling tool that you can map and plan out so that you are working multiple channels throughout your week and throughout your day, but not having to maybe do that every hour. You know, like on a Monday, you can sit down and say, like, what am I trying to spread out to the world? What case studies or what talking points? Is it an interesting article I read that pertains to me, or whatever the case may be? But scheduling those out, you can schedule those out in one of those platforms. And so, you know, you're popping up on LinkedIn at 12 o'clock on a Tuesday when you're actually on a conference call doing something totally different.
So that you said something earlier that I want to key off of, because Carson, you said, you know, marketing doesn't always have to be the big, sexy, glamorous, most recent project you've done, because that's probably my most common pushback I hear from owners is, well, if we're going to send out, you know, an email blast, as I call it, every 6 weeks, the answer is always, well, we don't have anything amazing to show. And I love that idea that you were saying marketing can be somewhat mundane. It doesn't have to be just the creme de la creme. Everything is brilliant. Everything is amazing. And I'd be curious to hear, what are some examples? Is it things like, here's something that we've been reading, or here's something we discovered, here's something we think you might find valuable? Do you have any go-to types of things that you use to keep the conversations going?
Yeah, absolutely. My first tip to that would be, because I of course, that is everybody's hurdle, I guess, when thinking of like newsletters and things like that, is like, or PR, like, what does my queue look like? You know, like, you got to have a deep queue to really keep a bi-monthly or monthly newsletter going, and that can come challenging. So one, I think you can take some of those case studies and break them down further. You know, you can create them into more snackable bites, and so you're spreading that case study out over the course of a week to 3 weeks, or whatever the case may be. So you're stretching that a little further. And then I think you can get even further into some of the technical parts of it. You know, over the past few months this year, ACES color space and HDR, you know, that's not sexy to a lot of people, but it's very important when it comes to working with somebody like a Netflix or really anybody across the board, of having knowledge of those workflows and just knowing it exists. It's something we've done, is where we just kind of put something out there like, hey, ACES is a thing. We've done it. Here's an example. Maybe we've already shown that project 3 times in a newsletter, or it's already been sent out constantly. But if it now has relevance to a new conversation that's being had within the industry, it still makes sense. And it's still showing not only your work, but your company's capability to stay on top of technology and to be able to think through some of the challenges going on in the industry.
So I'd have a question too, Carson. I know there's a moment where your initial effort as an EP was in sales, and you did what everyone else does. You go out and do sales. You went to the conferences, met people face to face, and then there's like this tipping point where you actually started doing marketing as a method, doing specific outreach, targeting specific people. Can you give us an understanding of like what kind of growth that kind of meant for you? Or I don't know, let's just look at it besides like maybe something like numbers, how much in numbers or how much effort it takes to do sales and marketing combined. Is it easier to do sales if marketing's out there, or, you know, give somebody some effort, understanding of the effort it takes to kind of manage sales and marketing?
Yeah, you know, bandwidth is always going to be the challenge. I mean, you spoke about on-ramp. I still have an ongoing relationship with Emmett in conversations. He's helping me figure out some contact list problems I'm having right now, you know? And so it's definitely having that bandwidth marketing wise. I think, yes, the short answer is kind of knowing when that tipping point is, I think, is knowing when I feel recognized. I feel like emails are getting responded to. I'm getting in on the conversations I need to be had. I'm maybe getting in on the pitch. Maybe I'm winning the pitch. You know, the overall recognition is feeling like it's there. I don't feel like every email I'm sending is cold. I feel like it's more conversational, not just from my standpoint, but about my company. And I've maybe felt good about the communication that's coming back to me, even on inbound. You know, what are they saying and what are they asking for? And if it's on par with what we do and what I've been trying to put out there, then okay, that's working. Now, how do I do that on a broader scale? And Tim, you actually said this to me once, and I use it all the time now. How do I put up the bat signal? You know, like, how do I say, like, bring this to me because I can't reach everybody at once? And that's when you start looking at the newsletter, what's in it. And like we said earlier, how much is in it? Because we all know that we got to kind of keep that queue fresh. And so what's in it, how much is in it, how we're sharing it, and then social channels and so forth. How is that operating and what does that look like? And just looking at my team, you know, our coordinator, Trey, wears a lot of hats. He's scheduling everybody's meetings, and he's also helping me figure out assets for the newsletter, you know? So kind of a combination of all those things.
Well, one question that came in, I thought was a kind of a juicy one. It's very practical. Was someone was asking, how do you figure out a marketing budget for a creative company? And I can give maybe some ranges that are like averages, but that's not actually answering the question, right? Because just saying, well, maybe 3% or maybe 4% is average. Do you bring a certain thought or method when you're planning and you're projecting and saying, okay, for the year ahead, we're going to make these kinds of investments in marketing or in sales? Is there a thought process you go through as you're looking ahead?
Yeah, it's challenging. I think those percentages you threw out are pretty accurate. I think for me, I kind of start with the tent poles. You know, what is the conference that I know I'm going to go to? And I know every year, not only am I going to, but I'm going to because I usually get what I put into it out. And what does that cost look like? And then, you know, I think you have to just be realistic about how the company's doing from a sales point of view. And I think as a salesperson, you know, I think it's natural to be critical of yourself, but you kind of know. I think in your gut, you kind of know, like, numbers are in a place where I can maybe go ask for a little bit more, but I better have a case to back it up and know why, and be able to tell my owners, this is what I expect to get out of it. And it may just be leads. It may just be like conversations. And then it's on you to turn those conversations into projects and to work. But, you know, I think it's kind of a combination of all those things of gut, timing, and being able to somewhat guarantee what you're going to get out of it. It's like, you know, it's like your network situation. Their calculated ROI, you know, their media spends are calculated. We don't know how to market ourselves. Well, they have a lot more bandwidth and power and data to make these guesses, quote unquote, on. We don't necessarily have all that besides execution.
Yeah, and I'll throw up with that to give people a perspective of, you know, marketing isn't necessarily a straight expense. It's really an investment. So the effort you put into it and the dollars often match, but you're looking for a return on investment. Some of your favorite outside services that might cost you money is PR, a sales rep, the conference leads, maybe a mailing list. There's outside expenses attached to it. But what you want to be able to do is when you spend money in those areas, you want to look at to see what the revenue you're receiving from that work. A lot of people look at a PR company and look at it as a total expense. And then they say something like, I don't really get anything out of PR. But if you look at PR as an investment and you start realizing all the influence that you're gaining, all the notoriety and opportunities you have, the conversion is really your responsibility. The PR person's just opening the door for you. That's an important aspect to understanding that budget, those expense items.
Well, we are at our 31-minute mark actually right now. So we should try and bring this to a close. I appreciate people chiming in with some good comments and questions. Dustin was asking favorite events. I'm curious, Carson. I know this, Promax is now going virtual. So I guess I won't be seeing you in LA come June. And I'm super bummed about it because I was going to buy you a drink, I promise.
Yeah, I had a friend promise me he was planning on spilling a beer on me, but sorry, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, those are free. I get plenty of those every year.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thanks for jumping in here with us, especially sort of last minute as our as the call went out. It was really great having you. And I should ask everyone here, please give Carson a warm thank you. It's very kind of him, especially to come and share his thoughts and expertise on sales and marketing and all that good stuff. So Carson, thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Everybody stay safe and well.
Tim, good luck on your journeys. We'll see everybody tomorrow where we'll be getting into Thursday and then wrapping up the week with Friday. And Tim, you and I are still on the hook. We have to start telling everyone this is what is happening. This is where we're going with the daily briefing. So the pressure's on.
Yeah, right. Now that you're done with digital design days, and we're going to watch it for the next couple of days, but we'll kind of finish our homework. And we'll actually continue this conversation about the sales funnel. We're just touching on the very beginning of it, but there's a lot of aspects to it. And Joel, I know you do work when you do the website roast. And I think that we can get into some of the finer details as we play this thing out. Carson, you're the best. Thanks for joining us with all you're doing. And thank you all for paying attention and being part of what we're doing today.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, guys.